Hello, and welcome to another Tech Talk. Think Debian is the oldest surviving Linux distribution? Think again. There's an even older one, and we're going to take a look at it now. Slackware was created by Patrick Folkerding in 1993, some 28 years ago. It was back then the very first Linux distro I installed, using a big stack of 3.5-inch floppies on a 486 with a few megabytes of RAM. Happy times. Today, we'll use this time machine to travel back to the 90s and see how Linux was installed and configured way at the very beginning. To do that, let's spin up the latest Slackware 15 RC ISO released the day before yesterday. So here we've booted from the ISO, and now it's giving us a choice of which kernel to boot. Let's select huge.s, and there it's coming up. All right, we've got a US keyboard, so we'll just hit enter here. And now it says we can log in as root, so let's do that. Okay, we've got the hash root prompt. Let's clear the screen. Let's do an lsblk. We've got a 32 gig hard drive ready for partitioning, so let's use cfdisk to do that. Let's select the DOS partitioning scheme or master boot record. Let's select free space here and create a 4 GB primary swap partition. Let's change that type to Linux swap or 82 hex. All right, let's select free space again. Let's use the rest of the space as another primary partition, and that's going to be our Linux file system. All right, for our root partition. And let's write it to disk. And let's go ahead and quit. So now we have our disk partitioned. Let's do another lsblk. So yeah, we've got two partitions, primary, 4 gig swap and 28 gig root partition. So let's launch setup. So here we have the Slackware Linux setup. We've got help. Got key map for non-US English keyboards. Add the swap here. So it detected VDA1, which is our swap partition, 4 gigs. Looks good. So yeah, we don't need to check for bad blocks here, so I'll select no. So the file system table has been updated. The root partition is also automatically detected. It's in VDA2. So let's select it. And let's do a quick format here. Don't need to check for bad blocks here. So I'll click OK. We'll use the standard ext4 journaling file system as the format for our root partition. There it is. Our file system table has been updated. Let's hit return for OK. So we can install from Slackware CD or DVD, USB stick, from a hard drive partition, from NFS, from a FTP or web server, from a Samba share, or from a pre-mounted directory. We have none of those except for number 1, which is the Slackware ISO. So let's auto scan for the CD or DVD drive. And it found it. So now we have a bunch of categories of package selection. We've got the base Linux, we've got the various applications, non-X, we've got program development, compilers, etc. We've got also new Emacs, which is a very old editor. We've got some documentation in F. K has the Linux kernel source, as it's always been. KDE, obviously has the KDE Plasma desktop. L for the system libraries. needed by desktops such as KDE, GNOME, X, and more. We've got under the N category networking, TCP/IP, UUCP, mail and news. T, we've got the tech typesetting software, which I used back in the 90s for typing up my papers. Yeah, that's a blast from the past there. We've got the Tickle-TK scripting languages under its own TCL category. And we also have X category for the X window system. XAP for X applications. We've got also the XFCE desktop environment. That'll also select here as a standby. And category Y for games. That's always been category Y, even back almost 30 years ago. Y for games, I remember that. So we've got a full install everything prompt mode. We've also got terse. We've got the menu. We've got the expert. Newbie. The X series takes 1 year, or maybe 28 years, for verbose prompting. Custom tag files. Yeah, tag files are outside the scope of this video. And help. Let's do the recommended full. So there it goes. Now these packages for Slackware are tar files, or tarballs, compressed tar archives. And so it uses tar piped to gzip to unpack and install into the root partition. And that's what it's doing now. This will take a while. All right, many minutes later, we're generating the initial RAM disk and setting up the fonts. And let's skip making a USB boot stick. So you've got Lilo, Linux Loader, automatic install, using a setup menu, or do not install Lilo. We'll need Linux Loader, or Lilo. So we'll do the simple. We'll use the standard Linux console. We have other choices here for different resolutions and color depths. We don't need additional optional kernel parameters today, so we'll just hit enter to continue. Let's install Lilo to the master boot record. And the GPM is a text console mouse. Well, that's a blast from the past. No, we don't need that today. Yes, let's configure the network. So our host name shall be Slacker. Another term from the 90s. The domain name for Slacker will be local domain. And VLANs, no, we're not using that today. So we'll select no. And we can do static IP, DHCP, auto configure with network manager, use the stateless address auto configuration, or loopback for modems or no net at all. Well, yeah, we're having a standard Ethernet connection, so we'll select network manager for auto configure. So it's configured. So we'll say yes, this is correct. I'll take their word for it. Settings accepted. All right, so we got a bunch of RC files for the startup init files, Berkeley style. So AppleTalk, they've got job scheduler, DNS server, cron daemon. Yeah, we'll leave that enabled. Don't need cups today, but use cups for print serving. DNS server, another DNS server. Dovecot, IMAP POP3 mail server. Okay. Fuse is useful, we'll leave that enabled. Don't need the Apache web server or the BSD inet daemon. No IP forwarding. Dbus system message bus is required, yes, for a desktop. MySQL database server, no. No, we're not running NTP either. No Open LDAP today. Or VPN. We're skipping PCMCIA. That's an old set of hardware from the 90s as well. Postfix. No postfix today. RPC or NFS daemons? Nah. No, we don't need that. Neither do we need Samba for file or print serving. Let's skip the SASL authentication as well. Smart monitoring, we don't need that today. This is a virtual machine after all. Simple network management protocol daemon, nah. We'll leave that off. The less we have turned on, the more secure the system is, right? syslog, yeah, that's handy to have. We'll keep that on, as well as the secure shell daemon. Okay. I don't like to try some custom screen fonts today, so we'll say no. I believe the hardware clock is set to the local time, so we'll click yes, or OK. And we're in US Pacific time zone. And I prefer Vim, or VI Improved, for our VI clone today. We've got a choice of default desktop environments. We've got the KDE, XFCE, cholesterol-free desktop environment. Got Fluxbox. I don't remember that anymore. Blackbox, remember vaguely. Window Maker, yeah, I ran that regularly back in the 90s. The F Virtual Manager, yep, that was pretty standard for many Linux distros of the day. As was TWM, or the Tab Window Manager. It was very basic indeed, but good for low RAM, low resource machines. The Motif Window Manager was a very expensive commercial Unix desktop back in the 90s. I guess it's free now, finally. So let's stick with the default KDE Plasma desktop. It says there's no root password detected, so we're going to have to set that. So I'll type the new password once, the new root password twice, and success. Let's hit enter to continue. Complete. Setup is complete. You may now reboot the system. So I think we're finished with the Slackware Linux setup program, so we'll click exit. Yes, I'll remove the virtual installation disk. Would you like to reboot your system? Well, I don't want to be dropped to a shell. That sounds painful, so I'll select yes to reboot the system. So it's starting the reboot. And there's our OS selection screen, Slackware. Select an OS to reboot or hit tab for Lilo prompt. Well, let's just hit boot. Okay, so up it's coming. And there's our login screen. Numlock is on, yes. It's running kernel 5.13.8. Give her password. Yes, Dave Barry, Sex and the Single Amoeba. What every teen should know. That's great. Message of the day. All right, let's clear the screen. And let's do user add to add a new user. Home. Default group is users. Let's add this user to wheel group, floppy group, audio, video, CD-ROM, the pluggable devices, power, network devices group, line printing group, the scanner group, and let's give the new user bin bash as the shell, and the new user shall be called Steve. I used to be Steve at organization name. That was my email, Steve at, back in the 90s. So let's give password to Steve. Type it once, type it twice. There we go. Steve has the password. Okay, let's clear the screen. Let's add Steve to the sudoers list by typing vi sudo. And let's find the first wheel section and uncomment that line, so all members of group wheel can sudo, which is what we want for user Steve. All right, so let's log out and log back into Steve. And after the password, trying to be happy is like trying to build a machine for which the only specification is what it should run noiselessly. Sounds good to me. All right, let's clear the screen. And next step is let's check our internet configuration, or network configuration actually. We've got Ethernet, sbin ifconfig, that's an old tool stack there. If you're running wireless, you can check it with sbin iwconfig. And then you can use Network Manager to configure your wireless card if you still need to do that. Cool, all right. Let's sudo and drop us to a root shell. All right, so we've got root. Let's see. Next, we want to change the default run level by nanoing etc init tab, because it's currently set to 3, which is default multi-user mode, and we want to set it to 4, which allows the default mode to be X11 or Wayland with the display manager. Cool. So that's run level 4 is the new default run level. So let's reboot and check that. So when it comes back up again, we should be eventually greeted by a display manager, likely SDDM. Let's see if my guess is correct. Yes, we've got SDDM. Good guess. Well, I guess KDE is the default, so they would use SDDM. So we've got a bunch of sessions to choose from. Plasma, Wayland, full Wayland too, failsafe, XFCE too. We've got that installed still. So let's do the default X11 Plasma session. Let's give it our password and log in. So this is our first login to KDE Plasma. So I believe it has a few things to set up. So we'll stand by for the first login. First launch of the KDE session, rather. There's our arrow, our mouse cursor, pointer. Okay. KDE Plasma. We've got a network connection, Ethernet. Let's see. Let's launch system settings first. And let's make this, under quick settings, the dark theme. Hit apply. All right, that's a little easier on my old eyes. Next, let's click on appearance. Yes, we're using as a global theme the Breeze Dark, which is what we want. All right, let's close that. Let's right click on the desktop and configure the wallpaper. Let's select a little something less garish to my eyes. Let's choose Run. Apply. Yes. Much more calm. Let's close this. So this is the menu. And let's select system information. So we're running Slackware 15, the release candidate as of this video. That's the home page. Plasma version 5.22.4, pretty new. 5.84.0 is the framework. Qt version 5.15.2. Kernel is very recent at 5.13.8. 64-bit machine. Very, very avant-garde. X11 is the graphics platform instead of Wayland today. Hardware's not so interesting. So memory. So you got total physical, free physical, shared memory, disk buffers, disk cache. So it's using 18% of the physical memory, which is 4 gigs of RAM that I've assigned to this machine. 81% free. That's very light. Very light distro. So here's our menu again. We got the favorites, Conqueror, System Settings, Dolphin, and Kate. There's all applications. So development, we've got Cuttlefish, Emacs, Glade, Joe's own editor, Kdevelop. Got Qt5 designer, UML modeler there. Education, we've got languages, mathematics, miscellaneous, science. Let's see, you've got Cantor front end. Yeah. Under the games, you've got a bunch of arcade games that I've forgotten about. Some usual Breakout and Space Duel and Catman. We've got 3 different chess games to choose from. Knights, X-Board, and E-Board. A bunch of other usual suspects there. Under graphics, we've got GIMP. We've got Carbon, Krita, Ocular, PDF viewer there. Digicam, Xfig, color chooser under more applications. Internet, aggregator, feed reader, Firefox, web browser, internet radio, Kmail, KTorrent, Conqueror, still there. The SeaMonkey, wow. Thunderbird, email. Yes. Okay, under multimedia, you've got Audacious, music player, Dragon player, Disk Burning, Kdean Live, very good video editor, MPlayer, Simple Screen Recorder, nice screen recording software, alternative to OBS Studio. Okay, under Office, we've got the Calligra Office Suite, which comes with KDE, or is a standard Office Suite for KDE. Got Ocular, Plan. All right, under Settings, we've got the usual suspects here. Same for System. We've got the G Partition Editor, File Manager, Console, Task Manager, and some XFCE stuff also along for the ride. Utilities, we've got the Arc archiving tool, GVim, usual stuff here. Mousepad, screenshot, yeah, and of course the help menu for KDE. Okay, let's launch the console terminal emulator. Make that a little bigger. And let's check the free memory. So as we suspected, it's very light, 500, under 600, just under 600 megabytes used out of 4. Let's check the file system table. So you've got the swap entry and the root file system entry. CD-ROM is commented out, but we've got floppy working. That's important. In the year 2021, we need floppy compatibility here. So if we insert a floppy drive, it'll auto mount. Very good. Floppy disks for the win. Let's take a look at the Slack package mirror list here. Sudo nano etc Slack package mirrors. And what they want you to do for keeping the system up to date or updating to the latest current is to uncomment one of these mirror entries. So you've got different countries, Australia, Canada, Greece, Netherlands, Taiwan, United States. And then for Slackware 64 current, which is what we're using, I would recommend you uncomment this line here to keep your Slackware 64 current. And yeah, once you've done that, what you want to do next is sudo slack package update gpg, and make sure the keys are updated. And once you've done that, you'll next want to just do an up arrow and just do sudo slack package update to update the mirror repositories. And then you can do a sudo slack package upgrade -all, and that will upgrade your system to current. So we won't do that today because that's outside the scope of this video and it'll take too long to this already long video, for which I apologize. Let's launch Firefox. So there's Firefox. Let's close the privacy notice. So for packages, what you want to do is go to https://slackbuilds.org/repository/14 dot something like .1/office. And if you want, for example, LibreOffice and import that, just do /LibreOffice. And this is the Slack builds website, where, for example, if you don't like the Calligra, you can use this information to import an alien package, say LibreOffice. And so it provides a script to build a Slackware package from the official binary RPMs for LibreOffice. So yeah, a bunch of documentation here. So it says it requires the Java Development Kit, since LibreOffice is heavily still Java development dependent. So we've got the 32-bit RPM source downloads and also the 64-bit RPM downloads. And the Slack build, that's the tarball for the scripts to build. And these are the individual files in that Slack build tarball. It's got a README, info, yeah, description, bunch of information there for how to do it. And if you need a reminder, there's the Slack build usage how-to. So they use the latest stable release. We're on current, so your mileage definitely may vary. Step 1, you download. Step 2, you read the README. You edit the Slack build script if necessary. And then you execute the Slack build script as root. Tells you how to do that. Then finally, once you've built it, you install the package, presumably as root as well. Use install package to do that. Cool. Let's next go to http://slackware.com, and there's the Slackware site. It's not HTTPS, it's HTTP. They don't use the secure connection. Word to the wise. They released Slackware 14.2 back in 2016, July 1. Okay, so it's been like over 5 years since the last stable release, 14.2. So Patrick Folkerding and the Slackware crew do these builds. Also got ARM. Back in 2013, they switched to Akamai, and even further back, they went to the Maria database. Cool. Let's click on Packages. So this is the Slackware package browser, and let's move to packages.slackware.com, which is an HTTPS connection. So we're running Slackware 64 current. And okay, some readmes. Let's see what's in the extra directory. Got BitTornado, Bash completion, Google Chrome. Yeah, built from 2018. Okay, that's a bit older. Tiger VNC, XV. That's a really old graphics program. I think that's what it is. Picture viewer. All right, so you got a bunch of packages. Let's see what's in development. Oh yeah, it's using GCC 11.2, so it's fairly recent. That was built on 30th July 2021. Yeah, just last month. Okay. So that's the package website. Okay. Slackware has been the progenitor of countless other Linux distributions over the last decades, most notably SUSE and now OpenSUSE. Thanks for joining me on this nostalgic trip. If you had fun, please consider liking and subscribing to support this young and growing channel, and leave comments below. Until next time, take care.